What if the one piece of health advice you followed your entire life is actually shortening it? What if the fear of the salt shaker, a fear drilled into us by global health authorities, is based on a dangerous misunderstanding? Welcome, my friends. Professor Vitalis here with your daily dose of wisdom and wellness, where science and experience walk hand in hand. Today, we are dismantling one of the most widely accepted dogmas in modern nutrition, the war on salt. It is absolutely critical that you stay with me until the very end, because the information I will share from groundbreaking new research doesn't just challenge old ideas. It provides a clear, practical guide on how much salt you should actually be eating for a longer, healthier life. The answer will surprise you, and it contradicts almost everything you've been told. Let's begin with the problem as we know it, the conventional wisdom. For decades, we've all been guided by the clear recommendations of the World Health Organization. These guidelines, which form the bedrock of medical advice in the civilized world, urge every person to consume no more than 2 grams of sodium per day. To put that in perspective, that's equivalent to about 5 grams of ordinary table salt, less than a single teaspoon to last you the entire day. In accordance with these recommendations, physicians across the globe advise their patients. In accordance with these recommendations, I too have lived my entire conscious life. I diligently practiced what was preached, meticulously limiting my salt consumption. It progressed to the point where, for a very long time, the salt shaker was entirely absent from my kitchen. It was simply not a part of my culinary world. The prevailing belief was that the salt naturally occurring in our food, the sodium in bread, potatoes, grains, and meats, was more than sufficient for the body's needs. Now, why does this matter? Where did this intense focus on demonizing salt originate? The reasoning, at first glance, seems perfectly sound. It stems from a well-established and repeatedly proven fact. A high consumption of salt is directly linked to an increase in arterial blood pressure or hypertension. The mechanism is quite straightforward and a beautiful example of our body's intricate biochemistry. When you consume salt, the sodium it contains enters your bloodstream. Sodium is a powerful magnet for water. As sodium levels rise, your body retains more fluid to maintain a stable concentration. This excess fluid increases the total volume of blood circulating through your arteries. At the same time, sodium triggers an increase in the release of adrenaline and noradrenaline, our fight-or-flight hormones, and makes our blood vessels more sensitive to their effects. So you have a situation where the volume of fluid is increasing, and the vessels it's flowing through are constricting or narrowing. Imagine trying to force more water through a garden hose while simultaneously squeezing it tighter. The pressure inside is naturally going to spike. This is why for individuals diagnosed with hypertension, the advice has always been and continues to be to reduce salt intake. From this solid fact, a seemingly logical hypothesis was born and extended to the entire healthy population. The thinking went like this: if we all eat less salt, we can prevent blood pressure from rising in the first place. If we prevent the rise in blood pressure, we can eliminate the risk of developing hypertensive disease. And if we eliminate that risk, we will consequently slash the rates of cardiovascular diseases, heart attacks, strokes, and heart failure, which remain the #1 cause of death worldwide. The conclusion? A low-salt diet for everyone would extend all of our lives. This was the neat, clean, and universally accepted story. Until it wasn't. Troubling questions began to emerge, poking holes in this perfect theory. Researchers started asking, for example, why the population of Japan, which consumes a great deal of salt, far more than their American counterparts, consistently boasts a longer life expectancy and a lower incidence of cardiovascular disease. There was a clear gap in our understanding. While the link between high salt and high blood pressure was proven, the connection between moderate salt intake and overall mortality from heart disease was still just a speculative hypothesis. In evidence-based medicine, we cannot rely on beautiful theories. We must test them with rigorous large-scale clinical trials, or at the very least, massive epidemiological observations. And so, such an attempt was made. A monumental undertaking began several years ago, an effort to track a vast number of people from all over the world and connect their actual salt consumption not just to blood pressure, but to the hard endpoints, the development of heart disease and death. This research is called the PURE study, the Prospective Urban-Rural Epidemiology Study. Involving nearly 225,000 people from 27 different countries, it is a colossal project. In August of 2018, the prestigious journal The Lancet published the first intermediate data from this study, and the results were so contradictory to established doctrine that they triggered a firestorm of criticism from many renowned cardiology associations. But facts are facts. This initial data release concerned 151,000 people, aged 35 to 75. Crucially, these were healthy individuals, no pre-existing heart conditions, no hypertension, no diabetes, no kidney disease. The researchers followed them, measuring their salt intake and tracking the development of cardiovascular events. The results were nothing short of revolutionary. The participants were divided into 3 groups based on their daily salt consumption. In the first group, the average intake was 10.1 grams per day. In the second group, it was 11.75 grams per day. And in the third, it was a hefty 14.38 grams per day. Notice that even the lowest consumption group was eating double the amount recommended by the WHO. And here is where the story turns on its head. In the first group, the one with the lowest salt consumption, there was a higher number of fatal cardiovascular events and a higher overall incidence of heart disease. In the second group, with a moderate intake, there was absolutely no connection found between salt consumption and cardiovascular disease risk. None. Finally, in the third group, the highest salt consumers, there was only a very, very faint trend toward an increase in cardiovascular events, so slight it was barely significant. If you were to plot these findings on a graph, with salt intake on one axis and mortality on the other, you wouldn't get a straight line. You would get a J shape. Extremely low salt intake corresponded with high mortality. As salt intake increased to a moderate level, mortality dropped to its lowest point. Then, at very high levels of intake, mortality began to creep up ever so slightly. Of course, this was met with fierce debate. But then, in April of 2019, the journal Hypertension published another separate study that followed 457,000 healthy people for 7 years. Its findings only solidified the new paradigm. It found no link whatsoever between a person's salt consumption and their risk of developing cardiovascular disease or dying from it. The old dogma was crumbling. So how does this work? What is the biological mechanism that could possibly explain this paradox, where reducing salt intake actually increases the risk of dying from heart disease? The answer lies in a powerful and ancient survival mechanism in our bodies known as the renin-angiotensin-aldosterone system, or RAAS. When your body senses that sodium levels in the blood are falling too low, it doesn't celebrate. It panics. It interprets this as a sign of a crisis, like dehydration or severe blood loss. In response, special cells in your kidneys release an enzyme called renin. Renin initiates a powerful hormonal cascade. It converts a protein made by the liver, angiotensinogen, into angiotensin I. Then, as blood passes through the lungs, another enzyme called ACE converts angiotensin I into its super-potent final form, angiotensin II. Angiotensin II is the master operator here. It signals your adrenal glands to pump out a hormone called aldosterone. This entire RAAS system is designed to save your life in an emergency by constricting blood vessels and forcing the body to retain sodium and water at all costs. But here's the crucial part. A chronically low-salt diet keeps this emergency system activated 24/7. And running your body in a constant state of emergency is profoundly destructive. The chronic activation of the RAAS leads to a host of disastrous long-term consequences. It promotes the remodeling and stiffening of blood vessel walls, accelerates the formation of atherosclerotic plaques, and even changes the physical structure of the heart muscle itself. It interferes with the heart's ability to relax between beats, reduces your body's sensitivity to insulin, promotes chronic inflammation, and can even destabilize existing plaques in your coronary arteries, triggering a heart attack. So, in our well-intentioned effort to protect the heart by restricting salt, we inadvertently trigger a powerful systemic mechanism that wages war on our entire cardiovascular system. So what should you do with this information? What is the practical takeaway? The data is becoming clear. The WHO's recommendation to strive for less than 5 grams of salt per day, a level of consumption that these massive studies suggest is associated with increased risk, may be inadvertently harming the very people it's meant to protect. The evidence points to a sweet spot. It suggests there is no need to fear salt to the point of complete elimination, but there is also no wisdom in consuming it in unlimited quantities, especially from hyper-processed foods. For a healthy person without high blood pressure or kidney disease, a moderate intake appears to be the safest path. Based on these findings, I believe that consuming about 1 level teaspoon of salt per day, which is approximately 6 to 7 grams, spread throughout your meals, is not only harmless but is likely beneficial. This provides your body with the sodium it needs without keeping the dangerous RAS system on high alert. We must move away from the extremes. The goal is not zero salt, nor is it a free-for-all. The goal, as always in health, is balance. This is the paradigm shift in our understanding of salt's true role in our health and longevity. Knowledge only works when you apply it. I'm Professor Vitalis. Stay curious, stay healthy, and never stop learning.